Hello and welcome to Aquarium Dilemmas. I'm your host, Science Gal Aquatics. I'm Kerri, and this is my co-host,
Jesse, and welcome. Thank you for tuning in to another wonderful episode.
Yes, I think it's an interesting topic to talk about today.
Yeah, we're going to go into our, you could call it cleanup crew, algae eaters.
If you just need a little help in your tank with algae control, we tried to think of a good list of things we've kept. There's a couple things we haven't kept that we really want to try to keep. We just haven't got our hands on them yet. But just a good overall list of things we have noticed that's really helped with my wonderful growth of algae that I tend to have.
Well, and when people talk about algae eaters, I know most people are thinking about like they associate it with bottom dwellers, which that is not always necessarily the case.
Yeah. I think the number one go-to is plecos. I call them plecos, plecostomus. I think that's what, in the conversations that I have and the people that I know, it seems like that's the one fish that's the standout that people kind of, in my life, think of as you set up an aquarium, you get a pleco because it eats algae.
Yeah. And there's a lot of different varieties out there of plecos.
Yes.
And we do recommend almost all the varieties except one.
Well, I think I've kept a good handful, but there's some that are quite expensive. There are some that are just standout beauties, and there are some that gets monstrous. And I have made the huge mistake in the years of just assuming that they ate algae, and I didn't supplement. Some of them need some driftwood to rasp on for digestion, and it's really important to know that there's a lot of different plecostomus out there, and you really do need to do your research on the one that you get, because like you said, some get huge, and we don't recommend the common pleco. We have a common pleco, and I do understand why I don't recommend it, because they do get large. I feel like the one I have is relatively aggressive. I really do think that pleco is the reason I lost my knife fish, my featherfin knife fish. It needs some meat. It's not going to live on algae, and that's the reason I have lost so many plecos in the beginning. One, I didn't know what I had. I need a pleco. Sell me one. And I just used it for algae control, and I did not feed it. I did not look into what I had and what they needed besides just that, because yes, they do help with algae, some more than others, but they all need something else besides that, or you're going to lose them just like I did. I would always complain, well, I'd get them to a certain size and then they would die. Well, I was not doing what I needed to do to help them thrive. So yes, we do not recommend, if you have a smaller tank and you really don't know if this is like your first pleco, I don't recommend starting off with a common pleco by any means. There's so many beautiful, really helpful ones that do help with algae that stay on the smaller side.
Well, I mean, just off the top, there's your bristle nose, your clown pleco, your high fin plecos. Those are just like, that's just a couple right
yes,
there.
I had a really pretty high fin pleco that stayed really small for a long time, and I really enjoyed that pleco. And I believe it was just a high fin pleco, or a high fin plecostomus. But the clown pleco, I had loved this one because it does stay so small, but there's periods of time where I didn't know if it was still alive or not, because they are so reclusive, I guess is a good word to say. Like, they hide so well. There is points where I just didn't know if it was in there, and I would do a water change, just hit the right spot with the aquarium vac and be like, oh, there he is. Or I would have all the lights off, and I would come down here and I would see him hanging on the glass. So if you really want a plecostomus that will help you out with some algae, but you probably aren't going to see it too well, but when you do, the markings are really pretty. But they do stay small, and they're a really good option. It's just keep in mind those where, Like the other ones, they hide. They kind of do their thing during the day. They come out more when the lights are turned down. But the clown one is like exceptionally good.
Yes. Yes, it is.
At that. And the Ancestris bristlenose pleco, those are just, I feel like people either just eat them up because they're so freaking adorable with all those bristles, or people just think they're not for them. But it's the males that get those, and those stay small, and they're really good to have in like a 20 long or a 30 gallon type tank, because they do stay pretty small, but they're an interesting one. I like them. I think they're cute with all the little bristle nose all over their butt.
Well,
some like the clown pleco don't get that. So it's really whatever your preference is. But there's some good options besides the large common pleco to get.
Yes. Well, moving on, that right there is what everybody generally thinks of as.
I think so.
And they think bottom dweller, they think algae eater, they think pleco.
Yes. And I really enjoy keeping them. There was a point that I had a Plecostomus in every tank I had. I really do like them, but just know that you need to know what you're caring for. And the one thing about the common ones is they sell them when they're so cute and small and tiny. And if you don't know what you don't know, and you go in there and you just want a pleco to keep your glass clean a little bit or something, then you just have to realize that some do get really large and need more protein. Some stay kind of on the medium side. Some are smaller. Some need driftwood. Some need more veggies. Some need like bloodworms, and they, like blanched zucchini seems to work for, you just don't want them to only live on algae. But there's a lot of different options out there besides plecos that you can keep in your tank if you want to try something different.
Well, yeah. And another one that it goes great in community tanks, especially if you have a lot of peaceful fish, and we have them in a bunch of tanks, is shrimp.
Yes. We haven't cared for the Caridina. I think that's how you say it. We have the Neocaridina. So when we talk about shrimp, that's what we talk about. But I fell in love with them. Fell in absolute love with them. I was kind of nervous in the beginning because, I don't know, they're just so small. They seem so delicate, but they do really well. We have hard water where we live in our fish room, and it's all fresh water. But they are so entertaining to watch, kind of just scour all over the tank. And I would say if you want one that's more apt to eat the algae and do a little bit more of the cleanup, a mono shrimp is the way to go. They won't breed so well. I believe the larvae need some salinity to hatch. I haven't ever even attempted to try that, but I have some in my 55-gallon Tetra tank that's planted, and they have been around for a while now, and that tank is generally cleaner than the others. It still has algae, but those Amano shrimp go to town, whereas like the cherry shrimp, they don't necessarily like eat the algae. They peck, they keep things clean, but you will have a larger clean crew to graze and kind of keep like your plants a little bit more cleaned up, your rocks a little bit more. They're not going to hang on the glass, whereas like a pleco will clean your glass probably better. But to keep your plants a little cleaner, your rocks a little cleaner, some cherry shrimp, they do a good job. But if you want something that's going to help you with algae and you have a mono shrimp available, but you're not interested in breeding. And they're larger too. The cherry shrimp stay like a half an inch to an inch on the large. Those Amano shrimp, they're hefty.
Yeah, they're
hefty.
They
shrimp.
can get quite large.
But they do a really good job. I would say they're the supreme out of all the shrimp that I've had. And like I said, I've only kept the Neos. The Amanos, they are great, and I had no idea. They are terrific. But when it comes to I think it's the bamboo shrimp and the ghost shrimp, they have fans, so they graze more in I think what's in the water column, and I haven't kept them long enough to know how they do with cleanup with algae, but I know those are available. But when it comes to the cherries, the blue dreams, the orange, they come in all, there's green jades, there's all kinds of different ones. The cherries, like I said, I think there's black.
Well, at this
ones.
point in time, you can get a Neocaridina
And like
in any color you want.
But they seem to do better at keeping things clean, where a mono shrimp, if I have some hair algae or something that I really am having some, and I could get some more mono shrimp easily, that would be my choice.
Well, and with shrimp, they will be all over the place.
They're just really entertaining to watch.
They'll be on the bottom, sifting through the substrate. Mm-hmm. They'll be on the plants. They'll be on the side of the glass. They just go everywhere in your tank.
You can always see them, whereas the Amano shrimp, I don't have as many. I've had 3 at the most at one time, because they are harder to find in our area. And even though they are larger, you can't necessarily like spot them. They seem to get in like under the driftwood. They're just harder to find. Granted, I don't have as many. Whereas the cherry shrimp, and they're so colorful. Whereas the monos are a little bit more see-through. They're not as colorful. Those cherries, they just stand out on certain substrates too. Like those green jades, you can see them. They're just beautiful. They just really stand out. And the cherries too, and the blues, and they're just also pretty and cute. But like I said, when I got them, I was nervous. I wasn't sure what to expect. I figured, honestly, I was just going to lose them all because I don't know, just being so small. But that one bag of shrimp turned into like, I wanted them all, because they are so, I just can't say it enough. They're just so peaceful to watch. They're entertaining. They're just constantly at work, and they bring a lot of life to your tank on just that bottom level. Because, I mean, you see them scooting around kind of everywhere, but they're mainly just on the plants and on things, just kind of pecking, just kind of cleaning.
Oh, yeah, always working. And they're a great addition to any peaceful community tank. Mm-hmm. If you have, as long as you don't have aggressive fish in a tank, you can easily add shrimp. I mean, and they will help.
Shrimp, I mean, I hate to say it, shrimp are probably pretty tasty in the fish world, just like in our world. I hate to say it, but so if you have something that's going to be, if it's going to fit in a fish's mouth, chances are it's probably going to eat it, because if it fits, they're going to eat it. So definitely peaceful. We keep ours mainly with if you've listened to us for a while, we have a lot of live bears. So that's usually what we gravitate towards. But anything on the peaceful side, if you haven't tried some Neos, get yourself some really pretty Neocaridina shrimp, because they are awesome. And they are very helpful with just a good addition to your bottom dwelling, kind of if you need a little help with a little bit of stuff on your plants or rocks. They do a good job, and they're pretty easy to breed.
Oh, yeah. We
don't have mass amounts of shrimplets, but every time you look in the tank that we have the shrimp in, we do have shrimplets in there. So they're not, if you want to build up a colony, it's not hard to know what to do to keep them, to get them going and thriving.
Well, and another one that's kind of either overlooked, or people either love them or they hate them, in my opinion. This is strictly my opinion, is snails.
Yes, I love snails. I don't have anything. I do have trouble keeping certain snails over other snails, and currently I think we just have pond snails is what we keep. And I don't intentionally add them, but I don't take them out. But I know that is one that if you don't like the look of, they just like little jelly, little globs all over your glass, them constantly reproducing. And I know once I learned how to properly feed my tanks, I didn't have that just explosion. You come down here and you're like, man, I have snails everywhere. But I was feeding a mass amount of fish flakes, so I was kind of helping them out. But there's all kinds of different snails, and I've had nearite snails in the past. I had I believe it was zebra nearite snails, and those are really cool, but those can get out of your tank pretty easily. So make sure that your tank is covered, because those can get out. And if I remember right, they deposit eggs kind of along the glass too, so it's one that, if you don't mind that, that can happen, but they're really good at kind of helping out, again, with your little bit of algae control if you just need a little bit of extra help. And they clean the glass, they clean the substrate. You just kind of see them. I think it's fun, kind of fun with certain ones. You'll see them kind of float at the top, and then they just kind of parachute down, and then they'll kind of walk up your plant slowly, and then they'll kind of just fall off and go down. I was like, I don't know if they're having fun, but in a snail world maybe, but I do have the most trouble with mystery snails. We got 2 more recently, and they come in all different colors, and I believe, if I remember right, they leave their eggs at the water surface line. So if you don't want to breed them, you can just scoop that out, if I remember right. But those are the ones that I do have the most trouble keeping. It seems like I do well for a few months, and then I just lose one. But ram's horn snails, I don't have any right now, but I know I've had them in the past. I've had an apple snail before, and those get huge. And when I was younger, I had tons of the trumpet snails. I believe it's the Malaysian trumpet snails. I haven't had any of those recently, actually, thinking about it, but those were all over my guppy tanks when I was a kid. So they're ones that feed on, you'll see them on your glass, your plants, your decor, your rocks. They just kind of scurry along. I think they're kind of entertaining to watch, kind of just slowly move. I feel like the mystery snails move faster.
Yeah. Or they're just so big that you
just
pay more
notice them more.
You pay
I feel
attention.
like
they're I mean,
they
in the snail
they make
world,
more ground, like headway ground.
They cover a larger area, but they're also larger as well.
Yeah.
So
the nearite snails are a pretty good size. I feel like they're like a quarter dime size, those zebra ones, but they can get out of your tank. And if you're not careful, I found one on the outside. I put it back in and it was fine, whereas some would probably dry out and not do so well. But I was surprised at how well that nearite snail got out of and I'm almost positive it was a zebra nearite snail that I was like, what? You aren't supposed to be outside the tank.
You're on the wrong side of the glass, bud.
Whereas some of these little pond snails, you'll see them every once in a while. Like one must climb out, and it just kind of, you just find a dry snail. But snails, I know some people just don't like the look of them, and they are really easy to get in your tank from like other plants and things that you bring in, but I really don't mind them. I think that they do a good job. I do have to make sure that I keep my calcium in check, because sometimes in the past, every once in a while, you'll see one with like a clearer shell than the others. But I've started adding driftwood to my tank and things like that. And I'm surprised, like, if you do want to get your snails out of when we had puffers, sometimes I wanted to take them out. You put a small piece of driftwood in your tank, those little pond snails will go right over to that thing, and you just lift out it, and then you have tons of snails and it's right there. So there's a lot of different uses and benefits to snails. And I know some people don't like them. You either hate them or love them, but I always have them in my tanks. I don't think I've ever had a snail-free
Well,
tank.
they're just another easy, simple addition that you can put in an aquarium. They pretty much will get along with anything as long as that fish obviously doesn't eat snails.
Yes. And I know, like, sometimes I haven't had the problem of my snails bothering my plants. I might have once here and there a little spot from a snail, but I've never had a problem with my snails out competing my shrimp or eating up my plants or anything like that. It's a slower cleanup. Like, the pleco's probably going to make more headway. Even the shrimp's probably going to make more headway. But if you wanted just a really pretty mystery snail or a ram's horn snail in your tank just to kind of help you out just a little bit. Like I said, not all of them clean the glass, and a snail will do that. So
this is true.
So I think it's a good addition.
Well, and moving on, how about, what do you feel about loaches?
I will say we recently just got some killie loaches, and I probably will never see them again.
You mean coolie loaches?
Or coolie loaches, yes. Thank you. And we'll probably never see them again. So for the sake of them cleaning the aquarium, we'll just have to get back to you on that one. But the reticulated hillstream loach, I've had 3 of them for a while. It was probably a year or so. But I've only come across them that one time. We bought them and I brought them home and put them in a 20-gallon long, and they were absolutely amazing and wonderful. And when they hung on the glass, they looked like they were smiling at me, and I just ate them up. And if you get the chance to have them, keep them, buy them, come across them, I highly recommend you coming home with some hillstream loaches, because they are amazing and cute and everything wonderful in a little fish bag coming home with you.
And ultimately, they do a good job.
They do a great job. But they are also one that will help you with the glass. You'll see them hanging on the glass. And like I said, when you look at them, their little mouth, they look like they're smiling. You can't help but love them, because they are literally like helping you clean your glass and smiling at you while doing it. And just their body, they're just a really adorable little creature. But I feel like they do better with some, like a not fast flow, but have some flow in your tank, because they do glass hang. They liked my larger rocks in that particular, it's a platy tank, and it has some larger like river stones, some flatter stones in it. And they loved that. And they would kind of kind of clean a spot and scoot. They're really fast, but I don't know. They're adorable. And they're not going to be something that's probably going to help you with a massive hair algae bloom type of thing. But like I said, they liked to wall hang. They were around my filter outflow a lot, and they seem to really enjoy larger stone. That's where they preferred to be at. But I love them, and I can't wait to have them again. And they did do a good job, kind of. They weren't the fastest, like I said. It's not going to be an overnight thing, but they were constantly just grazing on those larger rocks in my glass in that particular side of that tank. And I'm just kind of thinking about them and trying to remember. And I highly recommend them. But like I said, they seem to like a little bit, they don't want to get whipped around, but kind of since they attach, they just like a little bit more flow.
Yeah, a medium flow to the tank does not bother them. If
that made any sense, because I'm deep in remembering. But they're one that I just constantly seen in videos and people talking about them, and I just never had the chance to keep them. And we walked into a random fish store when we were out of town, and they had them, and they had 3, so we got 3. And they did really well. And just like everything else on this list, you can't just give them algae and that's it. So we do have, I fed them wafers, and I just had fun trying to experiment with different things. I would cut some bloodworms, a cube in half, and let them, or some brine shrimp, just to kind of see different things. But they did a good job. They were very helpful.
Well, and going back to the algae eaters, actually quote unquote algae eaters, how about the old Siamese algae eater?
Well, this is an interesting fish, because I've heard about them forever, and I've heard how well they did, and I don't know if I overlooked them. My dad kept 1 or 2, it seemed like, in his tank through the years. He'd always have 1 or 2 of them, but I just never kept them. And so we decided to keep them. And what we came home with wasn't what we thought we had. So what little bit I know about Siamese algae eaters, I feel like they are, if there was ever a fish that that's peaceful, that will constantly be active, will peck on. I feel like when they're smaller, they'll eat blackbeard algae and different kind of hair out. They'll peck. They'll kind of grow out of that. So you, like everything else, you do need to supplement their diet. But we came home there. From what I understand, there's the Siamese algae eater. There's one that's a false something. There's like a flying fox and a Chinese algae eater. And we wanted the Siamese algae eater because they're a little bit more peaceful. They kind of peck on things. They have one black line. They have kind of iridescent fins, but their mouth is not a sucker mouth.
Yes.
So that is the fish that we wanted. That's the fish that we wanted to keep. We wanted to take notes and share with you on this about this topic. But we came home with the Chinese algae eater, which seems to be doing they're still small, but from what I understand, they do have a sucker mouth, and they kind of have, whereas the Siamese algae eater has like that one black line down their body, these kind of have a checkered pattern. And like I said, their mouths are different. The Siamese algae eater has a mouth that's more made for like pecking on things, and they don't have that typical sucker type mouth.
Yes.
And what we got, and from what I understand, these will probably, they become a little bit more aggressive than the Siamese ones. And they're a little bit more territorial, but they both get about 6 inches. They both get they're a little bit skinnier, but they both get about 6 inches. And then I guess the flying fox gets a little bit more aggressive, but those and the fall, I can't remember, it's a false, they have golden around that black line. But we did want Siamese algae eaters because those are peaceful. They do a great job from what I just constantly heard about these. And I was like, man, this would be a great addition just to help, they sound fantastic. I don't know why I waited. Like I said, my dad had some from what I thought. Maybe not. Who knows what we got? But we have a bunch of Chinese algae eaters instead of yes, we have the Chinese algae eaters, not the Siamese algae eaters. And if you want to have a good addition to your algae kind of help crew that's a peaceful, make sure when you're shopping, you pick out the fish that you want.
Well, and one
and it was an honest mistake.
And one note to designate, it also doesn't matter between the Siamese and the Chinese, the flying fox, all of it. You're recommended to not just get one or two. You're recommended to get them in a smaller group.
Well, I don't know about I didn't look that much into, but I know for the Siamese ones, you do want to have a group of them.
Well, it was recommended. I heard it recommended, and it also was on the sign.
Was it? I'm just not.
That they do better in a group.
Yes, I know. The one I know the most about, the one I looked into the most, was the one that I thought I was getting, but apparently, with the excitement, and I wasn't. You were trying to surprise me, so I wasn't really wanting to be involved in my own surprise, So I was like, I want to be excited with what you pick out. But they seem, like I said, they're still really small. But from what I understand, the difference is the Siamese ones, the mouse again, have a different structure. They're made more for pecking. They're way more active. They're not in necessarily one spot, whereas the Chinese algae eater will it's got the sucker mouth, so it's going to attach to things, whereas the Siamese is going to peck more and move around. They're really active, especially like you said, they like to be in a group. And they're the ones that nothing really eats blackbeard algae. And when they're smaller, they're supposed to eat that, whereas the Chinese ones, the algae eaters, won't eat that. So it is the one that I would ideally like to keep. But for right now, we're going to have fun with the Chinese algae eaters, and we'll get back to you on that too to see how they do. But they do seem to be probably more on the territorial side, a little bit more, I'd probably say a semi-aggressive side, just because they might get territorial as they get older, but we will find out. Whereas the Siamese ones aren't supposed to be like that. They prefer to be in a group, and they're just more active. They don't latch on to things, so they're constantly pecking and moving around. But they do need more protein as they get older. They'll grow out of that blackbeard algae phase if they, like, I haven't seen them eat it because I haven't kept them yet because we don't have them, but I'm curious to see, but again, as they get older, they're going to need more protein versus algae.
Yes. Well, and we'll get into all that in a little bit of a wrap up.
Well, and too, before we, like, if you feed your fish with, like, this is how I plan to keep them. If I feed them like every other day and supplement them, and then the next day they'll peck on the algae, they might grow out of it. They're still going to eat it if I don't completely condition them not to eat it. And with a group setting, like, I went to this lecture when we were on one of our trips, and they were talking about how fish learn. And being in a group of them, if one fish goes out and it's like, oh, this is tasty, then the others learn to eat that. So it's kind of a learned behavior maybe, and I'm just curious to keep them to know, to watch them and learn about them. But that group mentality kind of, then they know, hey, we're supposed to eat this too.
Oh, yeah, we can eat this as well. This is yummy too.
And not just constantly feed them pellets so they learn just to eat that. Just could kind of, that's the fun of keeping them, is to learn things and observe new things that I haven't seen. And I'm excited to have the opportunity to finally purchase the fish that I think I'm purchasing. So there you go.
Well, the next one is, I won't say controversial, but it is a kind of a specialty type setting you would do this in. Yeah.
I think it's just an overlooked
and it's an overlooked because they will take care of everything. They will take care. If you have plants, you better look out for them too, because they'll take care of them.
It's not a long-term thing, but we're talking about goldfish. And goldfish, they'll just eat anything. And we've got a 75-gallon goldfish tank now because your friend was not wanting it anymore. And we're like, hey, we'll take them. And we have goldfish outside with the koi in the pond, and it's harder to watch them in a pond setting. You can only see them from the top. But goldfish are surprisingly good. Granted, they are surprisingly good at eating plants too. So if you have like a driftwood tank like we have, there's no plants in that tank. We don't even have substrate in that tank. It's just a goldfish and some driftwood, and there's some algae buildup on that driftwood, and they're surprisingly good at cleaning that too, because you'll feed them, but they'll eat anything. So
and goldfish investigate everything with their mouth.
And it's one of those, it's not going to be long term. It'll eventually we're going to put them outside in the pond. We'll probably even get another pond. But it's been a long time since I've had a goldfish in an aquarium, because I kept them wrong for so many years in an aquarium that I just felt bad. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that now that I know that. So now I keep them outside, but I don't know. You either love them or hate them, but watching goldfish swim is surprisingly relaxing. They were just basic feeder goldfish that they kept and grew up, and they're really pretty, but they will peck that driftwood. There won't be algae. It grows, but then it gets stripped, and then it might grow back and then it gets stripped. And they're just really good at pecking on that.
Yeah, so it wouldn't be a long-term fix, but if you were needing just a quick cleanup crew for a tank just to run around and touch the glass up. And if there's live plants in there, beware.
Yeah, beware.
Beware.
But,
They will munch your plants up as well, because they do test everything with their mouth.
Yep.
However, they are phenomenal cleaners, in my opinion.
They produce a lot of waste. Like some of these, like the pleco, they might be good, and the goldfish, they might be good at cleaning the algae. Because we set up this tank right now specifically to when we have new driftwood pieces come in, to have them a place to like get waterlogged and sink. So that tank doesn't have any decorations in it. It's, like I said, it's a bare bottom, but it's surprisingly really pretty because it's got some goldfish in there, and it's just got every so often just a random, you never know what driftwood piece.
And this situation.
But they produce a lot of waste too. So yeah, they're helping you out. That Pleco, Plecostomus, is helping you out, but their bio load is really high. And nothing's going to just you.
Nothing's going to change that. But again, this is a case-by-case scenario. For us, this case you're talking about, it works out really well. We are wanting to prep different pieces of driftwood for tanks that you're building.
Yeah.
Well, while they're getting waterlogged and sinking to the bottom, when they do start to grow algae, the goldfish rip it off, they clean it all up. It's a win-win for us now.
I don't know. I feel like goldfish sometimes get a bad rap. I had a goldfish for like 20, like two of them actually. One was 15 years and one was like 18 years. And that whole time I put them in a too small tank. I heated their water. I fed them really bad food. I wish I knew what I had when I had it to appreciate it even more. And through all of that, they still lasted a long time. They were at every apartment I had through my 20s. But I don't know. We got these from your friend. Like, we still have goldfish outside, and I just really, really enjoy watching goldfish swim. They're so beautiful. So if you have a tank that's large enough to keep a goldfish or a fancier goldfish, I just really feel like they're one of those overlooked fish, especially just feeder goldfish. I feel like they're really overlooked, and they're not good to feed as feeder fish anyway. So you might as well get a 75-gallon tank, get you a couple goldfish and some driftwood, and just watch how good they are at pecking and swimming. And they're just, I don't know, they're just really beautiful, and I just really enjoy keeping them. And like I said, these are probably going to go outside too, but you can appreciate them in just a different aspect. They do really well in the pond, and they get huge, and just the color is amazing, but you don't get to see them all the time from the side.
Yes.
Outside, but they're good at eating anything, and you have to watch them because you have to tell them no, just like the cat. You don't need any more. They'll come up there with their little fins, and I'm like, you're really cute, but I can't give you no more food. But they are a good addition if you just need something just quickly. I don't know. It's not long term, but it's just kind of a quick. If you have a goldfish tank and you have some driftwood in another tank that just has a little bit of algae on it, and you just get tired of scrubbing it with a toothbrush, stick it over there for a few days. And
pull it out and put it in there with them. They'll handle it for you.
And like I said, these are nothing. They're not fancy, but they are beautiful. And they came from, I'm sure, the feeder fish tank at PetSmart, and they are still just beautiful. And some are larger than others. Some are still pretty small, but I really enjoy them. And they're just one of those kind of overlooked things that I didn't even think about it. But making this list, I was like, you know what? Eat some algae. And pick some. Those goldfish do a good job.
Well, and moving back to another more of a bottom type dweller, you would say, would be the Corydoras.
Yes, everything on this list is cute, but Corydoras.
Well, you like the Corydora Julii.
I like them all. I had panda Corys for a while, but I made the mistake. I didn't know. It's one of those things that you thought it was a good idea, and you just didn't quite do enough research. and I put them in with some Amica splendens, and I didn't have them no more. And they are pretty expensive in our area, so I'm assuming they're pretty expensive in all areas. And some of these are cheaper than others, but Corydoras are probably on the more expensive side because they do need a group. So when you're buying 6 or 7 of something that's $20 a piece, it can add up pretty quickly. Some, even in the line of Panda Corydoras, are cheaper than the Julii ones. It's just, but they do a really, I don't recommend, they're not going to necessarily like clean hair algae, but if you want
a substrate
something
sifter,
to sift your, like
if
I
you
said,
want a
clean
substrate
up your
sifter,
substrate. They're really good at that.
Corydoras are your man. If you want a substrate sifter, if you have some sort of sand cap or sand tank,
yeah, you want to be careful.
They will absolutely love it. They will go to town. They will be constantly working, shifting, moving.
As a little pack, they're just so cute.
And they clean that substrate and that bottom like nobody's business. They don't ever stop. They are always at it.
And I feel like some of them are easier to breed. I haven't gotten any of them to breed yet, but I heard that I think it is the Panda Corydoras are a little bit easier than others to breed if you wanted to start off with one and try to breed. I don't know that for a fact, but I feel like I've heard that. But we supplemented with the API bottom dweller pellets, I believe is what it's called. I think that's what it's called, the API bottom dweller pellets. They really enjoy those. Algae wafers, things like that. But they're on the list of like algae eaters. They're not the best algae eater, but they're a really good addition if you want like a bottom dwelling crew to help you out, because they are so good at shifting through all that substrate. But they have like these barbels, and you just don't want anything soft. So that's why we go with sand. You don't want like, that's the one time like
hard.
River rock.
Yeah, you don't want anything
might
hard.
Not
you
be
said it backwards.
Yeah, I'm trying to think and talk at the same time. It doesn't go well. So if you could get some information from this podcast, like, you are a trooper. But you just don't want anything rough to cut their mouth, is I guess what I'm trying to say. Yes. So something smoother, smaller grain, just be aware of their little barbels. I think that's how you pronounce it, but they're so stinking cute, and they're such a good addition, and I do wish they weren't quite so expensive, and they're just really hard to find here too. Our local fish store closed down, so now it's kind of even harder. We rely a lot on auctions and online orders, but I haven't seen one that was not adorable, and there are some that are like the Panda Corys, and the ones that we keep seem to stay pretty small, but there's been some at the pet stores in like display tanks. I think it was in Chicago when we went to Chicago that those Corydoras were like that, like 3 inch. They were huge. So just be aware again of look at what is available and look up the scientific name and see exactly how large and what you need to feed them. But they're really good at addition to just a community tank of some peaceful fish if you have a sand substrate that you just want to help keep that a little cleaner.
Well, and to kind of go along with them, another one would be your auto sinkless catfish or armored catfish.
Yeah, these are kind of, there's a couple. These are the kind we're moving in. There's a couple, I think, 2 or 3. These are the ones that we really, really, really want to get our hands on. And the reason I want to get my hands on them is one, because again, they're cute and adorable and amazing, but these are really good from what, again, I understand. I haven't kept them, but from what I understand, these are some of the reasons why we want to keep them. And they're little armored sucker mouth catfish that they can get, I forget exactly how big they get. Now that I'm talking about it, which I probably should know. I can't remember exactly how big, but they're dwarf armored catfish, so I don't think they get humongous or anything, but they do such a good job at their job that you have to worry about them not eating enough. So from what I understand, if you have like a 20-gallon long, you might just get 1 or 2. If you have a 55-gallon, you might get 3. But if you have algae in that tank, they're going to go to town and they are not going to stop. And you just have to be aware that they are so good at their job that they can starve to death. So you do want to try like when I get them, I start off with algae wafers. That's kind of my go-to thing for something that is an algae eater or a bottom dweller type of fish. That's usually what I go to is an algae wafer and start there and see if they take it. But from what I understand, when you get them, you want to make sure if you can ask to see them to eat, that would be fantastic. But when you get them, you want to make sure that their bellies that looks like a tiny little marble or a tiny little pearl, or their bellies when they're hanging on the glass, you just want their bellies to be really round, and that's what you're looking for if you can when you're purchasing them. But they come in all different colors from patterns. From what I understand, there's quite a few different variations of them, but they seem like if you need an algae helper, these autocinkless catfish, and we don't have any around here at the store that we have. But I want to try.
If we see them, we're going to buy them out.
I want to try them. Yes, I want to try them so bad. But they're most of these are just really quick little. I would hate to have to catch them, but they're just really quick. But from what I understand, they go with everything. They come in a lot of different colors. They're really peaceful. You don't have to worry. I won't have to worry about them bugging my shrimp or bugging my guppies. They seem like they really handle a lot of different take mates because they are so peaceful. But the big thing is they will go to town on algae so well that you have to be careful of them not starving.
Well, in your tanks, I don't believe they would ever starve.
No. But as they get older, I believe you have to. I would start off with algae wafers. That's just me. But when I get them someday, that's kind of the fun of it. I've heard a couple people feeding rapashi to them. So they tend to, from again, what I understand, they're not going to be a meat heavy type fish. They're going to be still like a plant protein heavy diet, but they eat so much and they eat so well and they're so good at their job. And if there is ever an algae eater, that's just, you don't really have to worry about them I'm pretty sure they stay not like 1 inch, but they're not going to be a 6-inch algae eater. And I could be wrong on that because like I said, I forgot how big they get, but I feel like for a 55-gallon, they're just so good at their job. We'd only need like 3. And for a 20-gallon long, we might just need 1 or 2. But you just have to be careful that you're feeding them enough. But you're really looking for those round little bellies. But I was kind of curious. I'm like, they look pretty similar to an algae eater. But especially ours, because we have the sucker mouth one. But when you're looking at them, like a Corridora, like on their back, you can almost see like a little arm, like see the little armor. So when I'm going to a fish store, that's some of the things I'm looking for, because some of them can be so, you don't really know, they look so close and so similar. But I'm excited to try these, and I know a lot of my friends have them, and we get asked about them from time to time. In the past, in the live stream on Sunday if you want to check us out on YouTube, that's when we do our live stream. But we've just never really seen them in person at the store to have the opportunity to buy them. So everything I know about them is just from my friends and reading, and it's, watching videos. But I'm excited if I ever see them in person, you're going to hear me scream, and you're just going to have to hand me the card and be like, just buy them.
Well, and kind of rounding out the list here, another one that, it sets the bar really high again for algae consumption.
I think they're beautiful.
Is the flagfish or Florida flagfish?
I know them as Florida flagfish, but I believe they can be called American flagfish. But I've just always known them as Florida flagfish.
Well, when you look up their little scientific name, it's like Jordanially
I have no idea.
floridia. It's hyphenated, but it's like Jordania floridia. So that's I'm assuming because they call it the American flagfish, Florida flagfish.
They're just stunning. They're very beautiful.
They call them a pup fish. To me, they almost look like a really tiny perch.
Like a little sunfish.
Yes, they look
That's
like
how
a
I was
little
just,
sunfish.
But I believe they're a little small killifish.
And they are. They're in the killifish family.
And if you get like a small group of them, if you can tell the difference, you just want one male, because I believe the aggression comes from the male and they get kind of territorial. So if you get a small little group of them, you want just a lot more females. You just need like one male. But they will eat up some algae, from what I understand. The hair algae.
They are notorious.
Philamus algae.
Yes, they are notorious for eating hair algae. They will absolutely go to town on hair algae.
They do, from what I understand too, they do better in planted tanks, and they kind of just nip on all that. They really enjoy because the males can be territorial, so I'm sure the heavily planted tanks kind of give them a spot. But we were reading about them because I've heard about them for a long time, but it's one of those that I just haven't been able
to locate
to purchase. I'll see them in like a picture or something or a video, but they're just one of those I just haven't been able to locate. But I don't know, they're just so pretty. And killifish, that's probably why they're like, oh, it's so pretty, you must be in the killifish family. Because killifish, they're like our little saltwater fish for freshwater, because they're so colorful, but they don't get very big. It seemed like they only got like 2 inches at the most, but it seemed like you do want more females to males. But reading about them, they would be a great addition if you have some hair algae that you want to get rid of.
Yes, I agree. Well, and kind of wrapping everything up in one nice big old bow of what we've been talking about on this whole list of general omnivores that enjoy some form of algae.
Yeah, I was just kind of thinking about it, and I feel like most omnivores at some point they want veggie protein, and they want some meat in their diet. So, and like the guppies and the mollies, I feel like our platies do a little bit better job at nipping at the algae over the guppies and the mollies, but they all do it. So anything that's going to be an omnivore or a herbivore type of fish is going to be probably more apt to pick on things like that to help you out if you just don't even know where to start. If you just look at under diet, if they eat plant matter,
yes,
they're probably going to be at least helping you a little bit, picking on some hair algae here and there. And none of these fish are going to solve everything. I think a lot of them work together as one, and you need a few different. You might get a snail and some cories, or some shrimp and I don't know.
You can do shrimp and cories.
Yeah, you can do. It's not going to be just. I don't know. The only one that I feel like that might be overall just is the autos. That one might, but I feel like they all work better if you get a combination of this list, and they're all going to get along, and generally with anything peaceful. So if you have a community tank with, guppies and mollies and maybe a few tetra, and they're generally peaceful and great additions as a cleanup crew or an algae, helper out or crew. You're not going to be able to have this algae bloom and then put just, a Siamese algae eater in there and bam, overnight. And then but I feel like with water changes and your regular maintenance, and then maybe having some shrimp and some cories and a snail in there, it's just going to help you. It's nothing is going to solve your problem, because if you put a pleco in there to eat your algae and it's got a really high bioload, that's really not helping. Yeah, your algae's gone, but you're going to have a bacterial bloom because you have so much organic matter in there that you're not taking. So your best remedy is maybe, doing your regular maintenance on whatever schedule works best for you. But if you do just need that little bit of help, try to get a combination of these, especially if you don't have anything in the bottom level of your tank.
Well, and everything on this list, you brought up a really good point. Everything on this list it's not going to solve, it's not going to replace your normal maintenance. It's not going to replace your water changes, anything like that. This is just a help for the glass, the overall algae. This is just a help. It's still, all of these fish are going to produce waste. You're still going to have to do your normal.
Like, your best way to combat algae is to figure out why you have it. And I don't want to say, sometimes algae in certain circumstances is good. Like when we were trying to breed certain fish in the past, the white cloud minnows outside, they did better with some algae in there and they bred a lot better. So algae's not necessarily a bad thing, but if you have it, there's a reason why you have it. Usually in my case, I leave my lights on too long. So if I would just simply turn my lights off on a regular schedule and continue to do my water changes and not overfeed my fish. But if I still have a little bit of algae on my plants, having these type of fish are going to be a great benefit, and they're going to help me out with my maintenance, but they are not going to solve. The only thing that's going to solve the problem completely is me figuring out what's out of balance that's causing that. But like you said, there's not a fish out there, there's not a chemical out there that you just have a problem and you put it in there and you're like, oh, my problem's gone. You still have to, it's a team. I mean, they'll help you with your algae, but you're going to have to still do maintenance to clean up their bioload and, supplement their diet, because they can't live on just algae. They just can't do that. So even though it's an algae eater or a cleanup crew, they still, no matter what, if it's a snail or a shrimp or a cory or a plecostomus, they still need certain things in their diet that's specific to them. And if you don't provide that, they're not going to help you out with helping you clean your glass.
Yes. And the other one is general over the list that we have. When you get them, when they're younger, as juveniles, they are going to be much more ferocious on the algae or whatever they enjoy eating the most of. But as they get older, that is going to slack back.
Well, it depends. I feel like when it comes to the algae eaters, the Siamese algae eater, our Chinese algae eaters, or like the autocyclists, I think some of them do age out of it. But a goldfish, no matter the age, is going to peck on algae.
Well, yes, that's right. The goldfish.
I feel like some do, just like some are super peaceful and grow more mean. It's just each fish has a perk and maybe a little bit of a disadvantage. And some of like the Siamese algae eater supposedly will eat blackbeard algae. And like I said, nothing eats that. But I'm curious to find, I don't see any, but I'm sure I have it somewhere. So it's just one of those things I'm curious to find out. But that's why you're doing your research. And I thank you for listening to us and listening to what we have to say. But you can't just listen or read one thing. You have to, take it in and learn all you can. So then you're just best prepared to know. But some do grow out of it. Some never grow out of it. Some say that they eat it and you get them in your fish room and they won't touch it. And so it's really, you can read and listen and know all day long, but at the end of the day, you don't know until because it's really, each fish is their own, has their own personality, so, but I feel like there is something I read in a book that it was really simple, but it really did help. It's if you go into a fish store and you really don't know what you're looking at, it's a fish you've never seen before, You just don't know. But you're looking for something that kind of to occupy your bottom level of your aquarium, or maybe to eat some algae. I just feel like this was a good little, just pay attention to the direction of their mouth. So like this, the Autosynclus or the Siamese algae eater or the Plecostomus, they have, or I said Siamese, it's our Chinese because the Siamese has a different mouth.
Yes.
It's the Chinese one. If they have a sucker mouth, or their mouth, like the Siamese one, is maybe turned more down, but it's not a sucker type mouth. But pay attention to the direction of their mouth structure, because like our arowana, our betta fish, when we had an African butterfly fish, their mouth was pointed upward. And when we fed them, they're usually already at the surface of the tank. Their mouth is pointed up. So if you're wanting a bottom dweller, you might not know that it might be a brand new species to you that you've never seen. But if their mouth is pointed down and their structure's made to, it's just a good point to be like, okay, these are probably something that's going to occupy maybe the lower level of my aquarium, because their mouth structure looks like it's going to attach to a rock or be a glass cleaner, or like the Corydoras have their little whisker or barbels that are pointed down, so they're probably going to be a little bit more on the scavenger type of things. It's probably not always set in stone, but it's a good indication to know, at least for me, what I'm looking at if I don't know what I'm looking at. Like the guppies and the platies, their mouths are more in the, pointed just straight out. So, or like the Mica splendens. So they're kind of everywhere. So it's just a good little indication if you're wanting something specific, but you want something new. And it's hard. Like I've seen a lot of really cool fish, but there's a lot of fish I don't even know what's out there yet. And you just see them across the room and you're like, oh my gosh, that's beautiful. But I don't even know I don't even know what you are.
Well,
it's
and
just something.
The mouth thing is it gives you a decent indicator of okay, well, the mouth's turned up, so it probably goes to the top to eat. Mm-hmm. Like you said, the guppies, platies, mollies, mouth straightforward, and they're mid-level fish. They'll be all over the tank. So. And then with your quote unquote bottom dwellers, usually their mouth is turned somewhat down or has a sucker mouth, and they may or may not have barbels, depending on because some of the armored catfish have barbels, the Cory's got barbels. There's just all different fish, but the mouth, that is a big kind of like, oh, okay, so it might be doing this.
I just thought that it wasn't anything like super crazy, like scientific lab results, but I was like, man, that was something kind of profound that will help me for a long time. Just pay attention to the direction of their mouth structure, and it'll kind of give you a ballpark, like, okay. So
it's pretty common sense. However, it's something that's pretty easily overlooked until you're like, oh, well, that does make sense. If I would look at that, that's kind of,
it's the simple
I'll be
things.
darned.
Yeah. But I thought this was something interesting to talk about and put a little bit of a list together of things that we've kept that we've noticed have been really helpful with just with the hair algae. And there's different types of algae out there, and certain fish prefer certain ones. So it's fun to kind of, building a community tank. It's interesting to put together different fish combinations for your bottom level and your mid level and your surface, like at the top by the water line. So you have it might not be the most stock tank, but there's fish at all levels doing their job to help you out, because you still got to maintenance the tank, but if you have a couple fish in there that help you with that process, it's really beneficial for everything.
And then that way, you have a wonderful tank that you can enjoy at all levels.
And even just with the guppies, having some in there, it's just, I don't know, bottom dwellers, I think they were overlooked by me for a long time. And now that I have more in my life, I really enjoy the Plecostomus, and I will always have them. But there's so much more out there than just that fish. There's just so many different options, and it's really fun to watch them. Even though they're just at the bottom of their tank, usually they do bring a lot of life to the tank. And I really, like shrimp, like how can my life can't be complete without shrimp now? Like they're just, I love them so much. So I hope you learned something from this little discussion. If there's a fish that we talked about that maybe you haven't kept before, maybe we can talk you into going and getting it and keeping it. And you can tell us all about it and how it goes. But yes. Hopefully you've enjoyed this topic, and if you want to watch this podcast, you're always invited to go join the memberships over at Science Gal Aquatics over on YouTube for 99 cents. And if you are a member, thank you so much, and I look forward to hearing what you think about this topic. Leave us a comment and let us know.
Yes, and until next time,
thanks for listening.
Thank you for tuning in.
Bye.
Bye.